Hello and welcome to the Future City Experience training for new volunteers. Our goal for today is to help you feel more comfortable with what you've committed to for this volunteer opportunity. We'll spend a little bit of time talking about what the Future City Experience is, what's your role in it. We'll also be spending some time today talking more generally about some advice we have on how to talk to kids about engineering. You'll hear us say this quite a few times, but our goal with this program is simply to create positive experiences for kids, period. So with that, let's jump right in. So what exactly is FCE and what is your role? I'll first take a second to explain a little bit about FCE, or the Future City Experience, as we like to call it, and some of the thinking behind the design of the program. To start with, I want to tell you that there's really two programs in place. You might hear it referred to as the Future City Program or the Future City Competition. That's been around for quite a while, about a decade. It started in the US and is hosted by an organization called Discover E. It's evolved into a huge international competition. Student teams in grades 6, 7, and 8 spend many, many months working towards regional competitions, and they can advance through levels and potentially make it all the way to the international competition. The website actually sums it up really nicely, so I'll take a second and just read to you how they frame the program, so it gives you a good sense sort of in general what it's all about. So it says, Future Cities starts with a question. How can we make the world a better place? 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students imagine, research, design, and build cities of the future that showcase their solution to a citywide sustainability issue. Past topics include stormwater management, urban agriculture, public spaces, and green energy. This year's theme is Living on the Moon, which is really relevant these days with the Mars rover landing very recently. So teams will design a futuristic lunar city and provide examples of how the city uses 2 moon resources to keep its residents safe and healthy. There are some strict regulations when it comes to the competitions. Teams have 5 deliverables that they have to work on. Engineers Canada, who we are working closely with on this opportunity, they've been involved in this for a few years now. And the feedback that they've received from the teachers and the students has been really positive. However, we've also heard, and they've also heard, that it's quite an intensive program. It can be a lot of work for the educators, and in all honesty, a little bit intimidating. So Engineers Canada has decided to pilot something different this year to break down some of those barriers. The Future City Experience is simply an abbreviated version of the full Future City competition. We've made this version a lot more flexible. It's not a competition, so we don't have to be as strict. For example, the teams don't need to compete in or complete all 5 deliverables. However, we did want to give the students something to work towards and really get excited about. So this is where the showcase comes in. The showcase is an opportunity for them to connect and get feedback from real people like you who are working in engineering and STEM roles. I should also mention that it's not just necessarily schools that are participating or classrooms. We did have a lot of responses from youth groups like Scouts and Girl Guides, and even some individual homeschoolers were approaching us as well. So we have some very diverse student teams participating. Now, what's your role in all of this? We want you to be a key part or a piece of the puzzle in creating these positive experiences. You can really be the one that connects the dots between what these kids are learning in school, what they're being taught, and what is possible with all of that in the real world. In education, teachers call this experiential learning. It's where you, as a virtual mentor, can fill that gap. We want you to share your experience. We want you to answer questions. We want you to give them some advice. You can talk to them about things like the engineering design process, how they can do some research, where they might be able to find some great resources, how they build their plan, and how they can build and improve on their models. So you heard me say that the theme this year is living on the moon. And some of you might be thinking, hey, I'm not an astronaut. I'm not a planetary scientist. How can I give them advice on that? I want to assure you that you still will be able to create these positive experiences for students. We have some other resources that are specifically available where we can connect them up that are, with experts in those areas. So you're really there in a support role. So in March and April, we want you to try and visit with the youth groups or the class that you're matched up with once each month. So essentially 2 visits over the next 2 months is what you should plan for. I would recommend estimating or planning for each visit to last about an hour. The showcase I mentioned, that's going to be happening May 5th. So please block that date in your calendar now. Go do it now. Pause this video if you're watching the recording, or flip over to your other monitor. Book May 5th in your calendar now. We will send more information about the showcase as we get closer to that event and as we have that available. We also, now that we've received all the student registrations, we are pretty confident that we'll be able to handle all of those submissions in one day. So as I said, we'll get more information as we get closer to that event, but we did want to be extra cautious and plan a backup date just in case something happens. So the backup date for the showcase is May 12th. So please book May 5th and May 12th into your calendars. All right. So as I mentioned, our goal is to create positive experiences for everyone that's involved in this program, for the students primarily, but also the educators, the youth leaders, and for you too. We want everyone to have a great time. So we have some advice on how to do that. We're going to spend some time now talking about creating connections through storytelling. We're going to talk about the importance of diverse and inclusive messaging. And then we're going to talk about some nuances around virtual connections. To start off, I wanted to share some words of inspiration. I found this quote from Ralph Ellison, who is an award-winning novelist. And I thought that it was really appropriate and applicable and relevant to our situation. So he says that education is all a matter of building bridges. We see the Future City experience as an opportunity to build a bridge between the education system and the real world for these kids. So what are the objectives of the program? I've already mentioned this. The goal is simply to create a positive engineering experience. We want to spark curiosity. We want to help them see that engineers do more than just build bridges. And it's an opportunity to bring the curriculum to life. I talked already about experiential learning and how it's an opportunity to connect the dots between what kids are learning and how they can use that knowledge and how they can apply it. We can connect them to a brighter future. How do we do that? Well, storytelling is a powerful tool to connect with an audience. Storytelling really takes us beyond the facts and integrates emotion. When we can connect to emotion, we can create a lasting impact. For others, storytelling is a great way to receive information, to get a message. You can convey lots of information and create emotional connections to have that impact. But it also has some value for you too. It forces us to do some internal reflection and to think about the choices we've made, the path we've taken. It can help even reconnect us to our own engineering or STEM identities. All right, so how do you create your story? Now, right up front, I'll say this might not be something that you do every day. If it feels a little uncomfortable or unusual, that's actually very normal. We see it all the time. You're probably used to communicating through email these days, or on Zoom calls or formal reports and in boardrooms. And our storytelling skills have probably gotten a little bit rusty. So we've got a few steps to help. First is to reflect. That's it. Just take some time, think of your past. What were some of the things that really stand out for you? Maybe you've got some favorite memories. Maybe there was something that was really a challenge for you, a challenge you overcame and you're really proud of. Just be patient with yourself and see what comes up for you. It's also really important to know your audience. I've already mentioned that FCE is for grades 6, 7, and 8. That's 11 to 13-year-olds. But what else do we know about them? You can also think of, where do they live? What's relevant to them right now? Maybe there's things going on in their communities that you can talk about. Be open-minded and try and put yourself in their shoes. And then you really just want to map it out. We do have a simple template that you can use to help you map out your storyboard, but it's really as simple as identifying yourself as a human, unpacking your reasons, and then why does it all matter? So when you introduce yourself, you don't need to list any of the letters you have after your name. It's just not something that 11-year-olds are going to relate to. We want you to tell them your name and something interesting about yourself. Then unpack the reason for these important decisions you've made that have influenced your life. These are the things that kids can relate to. And then don't forget your reasons, your why. We do want to be honest and real with these kids. We want to let them know that yes, engineering is hard. Yes, it's a lot of work. There might be certain parts of it that are harder for some people, but that's okay because you can do hard things. And as an engineer, you get to do some amazing things that make all that hard work worthwhile. You get to help solve complex problems. You get to work with really fun teams. You can even travel the world as an engineer. Really, anything's possible. So here's some do's and don'ts to keep in mind. Do tell your story with enthusiasm. You're not in a boardroom. It's a classroom, or it could be a gymnasium, or it might even be someone's living room. Do try and rehearse if you can. The more times we can tell our story, the more conversational it feels, and the more real it sounds. Do be descriptive. You can go beyond just the facts. Remember, you are not writing a report. You are trying to create an emotional connection with these kids. There's also a few things you want to stay away from. So don't tell your story as if it's a business presentation. It's absolutely okay if you want to have a slide deck to help highlight your key points and keep you on track, but just try not to read from your slides. And finally, don't get into the weeds. Kids are taking in so much information these days, so try and have a plan and stick to it. All right, so as mentioned, we do have a template you can use to help build your story. You will all be sent a copy of this presentation, and so you can download that template directly from this slide. Now we'll spend some time talking about diverse and inclusive messaging. Why is diverse and inclusive messaging important? One of our goals is to attract and retain diverse, intelligent, talented individuals. And there are some things that we can do when we are talking to a diverse group of kids that can help. In fact, all we're really doing is taking some science, some social psychology in this case, and applying it to the design of these outreach experiences. So really no different than what engineers do every day. The relevant science I'm talking about is called stereotype threat. We know that this affects the decisions and choices that children make. Stereotype threat is a situational predicament in which people feel they are at risk of conforming to a stereotype about their social group. It's important to point out that it's just the threat of a particular stereotype that can have negative consequences. Things like undermining performance, triggering concerns about belonging, lowering engagement, even threatening health. Here's an example. If the stereotype is that girls are worse at math than boys, it's been proven that girls may perform worse on a math test if the test is being given by a male teacher or male proctor. There is good news, though. There are some things that you can do, some scientific interventions that you can use when you're visiting these students. So here are the 5 things that we recommend. Now, keep in mind that these might not all apply to every situation, but we like to have a toolkit for you. The first one is to model respect for minorities and women. We recommend, what we recommend is for you to think of some ways that you can show respect. For example, if you notice that it's always the boys that are standing up to ask questions, try and encourage some of the girls to speak up. Also, be aware of the other adults that might be present. If they are women or if they are minorities, think of ways that you can show them respect. Maybe you ask their opinion on something, or ask for their help in some way. Get them involved in the conversation in some way. The second is to be relatable. We want you to connect with people as humans. We want you to talk about things that are going on in your own life. What's your favorite food? What are your hobbies? What kind of music do you listen to? Maybe some of your favorite movies. These are all great non-gendered topics that you can connect equally with everyone in the room. And the third, and one of our favorite interventions, is to promote a growth mindset. This is simply the idea of accepting and even celebrating failure. Talking about what it means when you fail and what we do with that information. Failure is part of the engineering design process. It's very valuable information. It's important to model that for the students. That means that when something goes wrong with your presentation, or there's a technical glitch, or a student asks you a question you don't know the answer to, acknowledge it. Show them that it's okay. We can learn from it and we can move on. The last 2 interventions we recommend are maintaining high standards and valuing diversity. And I apologize, there should be some fun pictures for you to look at on this slide. I don't know why they're not showing up. I will make sure they're in the slide deck that you get. So with maintaining high standards, you might actually find this one a little bit counterintuitive. We're all kind-hearted people and we want to see the students succeed. So we have a tendency to lower the bar when we see someone is struggling. However, what the science tells us is that this approach can actually have the opposite effect. Students think that you're judging them, that you don't think they're good enough, that they could never do it, and so you're lowering the bar for them. By keeping those standards high, we send the message that yes, it's hard, and I believe in you, and I'm here to support you, and I think you can do it because we can do hard things. And finally, valuing diversity. This is definitely something that all of us have become more aware of, especially with the Black Lives Matter movement. We know that being colorblind is not the right approach. We can show that we value diversity by showing it in our pictures, in presentations, and talking about why it matters. So for engineers and the engineering community, diversity is important. Why? Engineers solve problems for our society. That means we need to represent our society. If we don't have diverse thinkers solving society's problems, then we're going to have blind spots. We're going to have gaps. People can even get hurt. Here's another quote that is very relevant to what we're talking about today. Maya Angelou says, "I've learned that I still have a lot to learn." One of the things that we are still learning is how to connect in the virtual environment. We found that there are 5 big challenges when it comes to working in virtual teams: building trust, maximizing gains or minimizing losses, overcoming feelings of isolation, balancing technical and interpersonal skills, and assessment and recognition of performance. This is all really important stuff when it comes to team building and connecting. The good news is that we've got some experience with this now, so we have some advice for how you can overcome these challenges. Some of these things are maybe things that you've put into practice yourself. Here are the 4 things that we recommend. You need to build trust. To do that, you need to value people over technology. It's great that we have platforms that we can connect now all across Canada, but we still have people on the other side that have their own strengths and weaknesses. Try and think about your own strengths and weaknesses. What do you bring to the table? And where are there some places maybe that you could ask for some support from other people that are involved? Being vulnerable, asking for help, that builds trust. Strong teams also know how to be efficient. We are all busy. This year, we've heard from more teachers than ever that they are swamped. They are overwhelmed and they need help. So this virtual mentorship is one way that we can help them. One best practice we recommend is to have an agenda and then stick to it. And I'm sure all of you understand the importance of communication. Now, this will be especially important as you establish a new working relationship with the youth leader or the student groups. So our advice here is to start with the basics. Find out what is their preferred method of communication. What conferencing platform do they use? You should default to their recommendations here because some of them may even be restricted by their school board with what they can use. And be sure to model open and honest and transparent communications. Emails can so easily be misinterpreted. And not having that ability to see a person's body language or judge their tone can just lead to misunderstandings. And finally, don't forget to celebrate the wins. Make sure you have some time budgeted into your agenda to talk about what's going well, no matter how big or small. Acknowledging the wins can help keep the momentum up and gets the kids excited to connect with you again. By implementing some of these suggestions and with your own experience connecting virtually, I'm confident that you'll be able to develop a great relationship with everyone that's on the other side of the screen. However, there are a few other things that we'd like you to keep in mind that can keep the kids specifically, that can help the kids have some aha light bulb moments. This is Maslow's triangle. And I'm noticing that the image is not showing up on the screen. Apologies again for that. So I will make sure that there's a copy of it in the slide deck you receive. If you want to see it live now, maybe just off to the side, you can Google it. But it's a motivational theory that illustrates certain human needs that must be in place before someone can attend to the needs that are higher up in the pyramid. So at the base, it speaks to the importance of safety and belonging. And it's just especially important these days, right? When we have kids that don't even feel safe leaving their own houses. Now, you might not be able to give them everything they need to feel safe and secure, but if you implement some of the recommendations we've already talked about, you can be a source of inspiration, someone that they can trust, someone they can count on. You can really open up a whole new world for them. And it's always so rewarding when you hear kids say things like, I never knew engineers did that. Or, wow, I didn't know engineers. As an engineer, I could help so many people. There are some simple things that you can do to build this trust. Things like trying to learn their names. Now, that might sound hard. There's probably a lot of them and only one of you. But maybe you implement a practice where anytime a student stands up or comes up to the camera to ask you a question, they first tell you their name. Then, when you respond back to whatever their question is or their comment, make sure you repeat their name back to them. You can also make an effort to find out what they're interested in. What do they want to talk about? What's important in their world right now? Don't we all appreciate when someone shows an interest in us? And then lastly, make sure that the students just know you're excited to see them. It just really can be as simple as that. All right, my images are failing me today, but this is just a quick ask because we always love to get a window into what's happening at these visits. So if your teachers or youth leaders are taking pictures, ask them if you can get a copy to share with us. We really just appreciate having that window into what's going on. Do note, though, there may be some privacy restrictions for the students, so please be aware of that. But we often see teachers posting pictures up on Twitter. So if they're planning to do that, please ask them to tag us so that we will get notified. They can tag us at EngOfTom, or they can also tag Engineers Canada. All right, thanks. So thank you for hanging in there with me. That was quite a lot of information to cover. But just please know that we are here to help. If you have any questions, comments, feedbacks, whatever, please reach out to either myself, Rebecca White from Engineers of Tomorrow, or Kim Bouffard from Engineers Canada. So I do have a little homework for you. I want you to start thinking about your story. Start that reflection process. Ask yourself, how does the work that I do make the world a better place? I also want you to start getting familiar with the resources. This will help you feel more prepared for your first visit. You can expect early next week to get an email from us that will highlight some of the important resources. FutureCity.org has a lot of resources available, so we'll let you know which are the best ones for you to be aware of. This email is also going to be connecting you with a teacher or a youth leader. And I've got some fantastic news. It looks like we may also be able to have multiple volunteers or mentors matched with the same class or youth group. That information will all be in the email. So I want you to think of each other as additional support, someone that maybe you can bounce ideas off of and lean on as needed. And then finally, I want you to get connected with some of the other people that are just as passionate about STEM and engineering as you are. We do have a LinkedIn group. It's called Engineering Ambassadors, so you're welcome to join us. And if you'd like to connect with us more broadly, we are in all the usual places. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can go to our website, engineersoftomorrow.ca, if you want to find out more about the impact that you are helping us create. All right, I will wrap up with next steps. So as mentioned, you will be getting an email from us in the next few days. Be sure to take the lead, set up an intro call with your youth leader contact. We strongly recommend you start planning out your virtual visit dates and get them on the calendar so that you have a date to work towards, they have a date to plan towards. Please also book the showcase date, May the 5th, and the May 12th backup date. On your calendar, we will be in touch with more information about how that will all work and your role as that date approaches. Thanks so much, everyone, for taking some time out of your busy day to connect with us and learn more about how you can be part of inspiring the next generation.